Hey, we're crawling on all fours, and this is the Rock Pirates RC Element Enduro, my newest crawler. I think this thing is just awesome. Crazy, crazy weathered paint job on this. Check that out. Absolutely love this patina. I love the random rust all over the place, and the chips and scratches and all the different elements, all the different little nuances of this paint make it and give it its own little character here. If you want to know more about this paint job, I put a link in the description below, all about how to weather the paint. You can do this on a hard body, you can do this on a Lexan body. It's best to do it on a hard body, but I will show you, or at least provide to you, what paint I used. With this build, even though this is part 2 and I'm talking about the paint job, I did a terrible job archiving all of the video and archiving all of the steps in how I made this look weathered and rusted and used and battered and beaten. But you can see there I actually put in some little elements of dents and dings in the hood there. This detail is so unique.
Not that I'm a great archivist, but I went ahead and dremeled the front fender here, the very front of it, to alleviate, some of those sharp corners and sharp angles, to give a little bit more room for the wheels, or for the tires. I just taped the markings or taped the direction where I wanted the cut to go, and just kept it very clean, very uniform, kept an easy curve there. I didn't want it to go too straight and just look, out of place. And then I just came back with a file down the burrs and the sharper edges, or the rougher edges, and then came back with some sanding paper to get it down real smooth. So that's a real clean cut. And you can see on the other side I did the same thing. This is before the sanding, so you can see just a little bit of a rough cut there, not exactly the factory finish, but I'm going to sand that down and just get it real smooth.
My goal here was to film all of my actions here to weather the paint. I have not done a very good job at archiving this. I'm just terrible at documenting this stuff, because once I decide to do it, once I decided to commit and get into it and start painting or modifying or do whatever, I just go ahead and do it. Sometimes this gets really frustrating because I want to show you the process of how I got here, but I just don't have good footage. That said, I want to go ahead and tell you at least what I've done to the body to give it this rusty look. So if I haven't said it enough already, I just absolutely love this paint job. I wanted to do a rusty, weathered look. I didn't want to do just a solid blue paint. I thought that'd be cheating. Once I put the time and effort into this rusty, weathered look, man, I was just so satisfied and so just over the moon with the way that it looks. So these are all the paints that I used in making this weathered finish. And I started with a primer, of course. Wasn't really required. So the body is a PVC plastic. It's a RC 4-wheel drive Mojave 2 body, just a cab only, of course. And so this primer simply just gave me a good foundation to start with. But my base coat was this Fusion all-in-one metallic vintage brass. And so this gives me that nice, warm, brown, kind of goldish tone as the base coat, so that I could also embellish it with some additional colors in some like a darker brown and this yellow ochre. Actually, this is called burnt umber, which is a very typical color in automotive paint and mixing paints. And then this is called yellow ochre. So this gave it a nice kind of greenish tint on top of the vintage brass color. And then when I mixed these two together, it gave a nice darker tone, more of an aged tone. And so it came out really strong, really nice on the roof here, as well as different parts of the hood. And so once I was done with that, there was one more. Actually, I should have a larger space in between these two colors. This is my base coat, and then this is the top coat. But what I did was I used hairspray. Yeah, you heard right. I said hairspray. So this hairspray worked as an inactive medium in between the two colors of my base coat and my top coat. And because hairspray reacts so well and it dissolves quickly as it's exposed to water, once this was dry and all my embellishments were dry, the hairspray went on top of this base coat. And then once this dried, I put a nice 3 or 4 coats of this hairspray. Doesn't matter whether it's Max Hold or Simple Hold, whatever it is. It could be any hairspray. But once I applied that, let it dry, I then came back over that and I used my top coat. Now the top coat itself had to dry. So I had to wait a couple hours, maybe 2, maybe 3 hours before I could then start to kind of not aggravate, but agitate the paint. And by doing so, I basically, used these brushes here. I used a brass bristle brush. So this was a stiff, aggressive brush that I used on some of the spots on the surfaces of the body, as well as this stiff bristle toothbrush. Now, the advantage of the toothbrush was it was a little gentler, so it wasn't as aggressive. You can actually see I took off quite a bit of paint using the brass brush on the roof, but on the hood I used more of the toothbrush, and so it took less paint off, but it was equally as effective because the flaking was very, very natural and very, very realistic. So I really, really think that the hairspray method was the perfect method for a body like this, a hard body like this, in how it was able to lift the paint off and scratch and flake the top coat paint. So once that was done, I let that dry, and it didn't matter that there was hairspray still underneath or in between the two layers. It was all dry. So then I could seal it. And so I used this, which is basically just a matte clear finish, a matte clear sealer. And I really like using this particular paint on my other bodies. I've used it on my Lexan bodies, which gives it a nice, just a professional look, a professional finish, because it's not like the typical shiny Lexan or shiny plastic body finish. It's just a flat finish. So it looks good on these bodies. It looks good as scale realism as you can get. So I do recommend using like matte clear finishes on your paints, both to give it a nice look, but also to seal your work and to seal all the different nuances that you've created in the weathered body. Now, if you're wondering how I got that bright orange oxidized rust color, I basically used some acrylic paint. And this is from a set that my kids have. It's just craft paint, really. This is vermilion. I basically just call it orange. But I use a stiffer bristle paintbrush, and this is a good amount of pressure that I'm putting onto the body. And I'm getting some good resistance from the brush itself. So this is really nice in picking up the paint and then dabbing it on the spots and the spaces where I want. So I'm actually going to show you, I'm going to come back into this larger ding, and I'm going to fill that in with some of this orange vermilion paint. So let's do that right now. So kind of looks like toothpaste. It's really just like a thick acrylic paint, very similar to like peanut butter or toothpaste. Some of these little dents and dings already have some of the orange paint in them. And again, all I'm doing is I'm just going to kiss the little dent there, just adding some of that orange paint. And I'm going to go into this one here. And then I'm going to go into this one, and we're going to wipe off just like that. Give it a kind of a wet, worn look. So it was that simple. It was that easy. All I did was I applied and just pushed that paint into the little divot there. And I'm gonna apply just a little bit more, just give it a little bit thicker application. I can also take the brush and add a little bit more runniness to it, and then simply just kind of take my finger there and pull the paint down. That's it. That's it. Just like that. I get a lot of, so this line here, this panel line, gets scraped up pretty easily. So I can take that orange paint, because this is a weathered body, and I can simply just add a little bit of rust on those spots that came down to the base coat, or actually the primer. So all I'm going to do is just kind of blend it a little bit. There we go. And just like that, we filled in the paint. We filled in those spots. And now they are some rusty, oxidized little chips. Okay, I pulled that a little bit, filled that in, just pulling that down. And just like that, we filled in the paint. It's that easy. Okay, I'm going to fill in this corner here. This one took a beating. Now I added some burnt umber. So that's more of a brown. And that's going to fill in and blend with the other colors of the roof in combination with the orange. So I'm just going to kind of blend that. Okay. And then I'm going to just pull it with the finger. And that will dry. And it will fill in nicely. I don't want it to create another type of finish on top of the existing finish. I can always go back if I wanted, and I can add some more clear coat, some more of the matte clear coat, and that'll seal these spots. But I really don't want to do that right now because these are just small spots, so I don't have a lot of stuff to fill. Now, as I mentioned before, I put a link in the description below so that you can learn more about this hairspray method and watch the video that inspired me to create this weathered body on this truck. So definitely check that out if you want more information on how this process works. Hey, thanks again for watching this episode of Crawling on All Fours. We hope you enjoyed the content. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content in the future. Thanks so much. Keep crawling.